playoffs begin for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals, and we begin things here in Sin City at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Lucas Cram, and Lucas, here tonight, it's the first step for these drivers to try and make their way into the championship week at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but only 100 laps here today at this 1.5-mile speedway. What do you think we're going to see here today in terms of aggressiveness? Because it's a rather short race.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not a lot of time to make up lost ground if you have any mistakes here. So 100 laps, got to be perfect. Super high track temp as well. It's going to be nice, hot, and slick here. 118 degrees. So these guys are going to be moving all over the place, trying to use that grip strip to their advantage up on the high side, and let's track at the front.
A couple of weeks ago, we ended up seeing the 12 drivers officially that are going to be battling it out for the championship in a few weeks' time. That was, of course, at the Daytona International Speedway. And now those 12 drivers are going to look to see if they can advance into the final round of the playoffs. It's a different scenario for how you get into the championship week, and we'll be documenting that during the course of this race, as Tyler Gary will be starting on the pole position for today's Kicking the Tires 100. Jordan Worth to his outside, and then a couple of playoff contenders there in Nate Stewart and Sean Butler. They're going to make up row number 2. As we look here through the starting order for today's event, obviously we know that Las Vegas is one of those tracks where tire wear is going to come into play. What if you are a playoff contender coming to this race, are you prepared for? Are you prepared maybe for some early cautions to come out and prepare for some short runs, or do you already start strategizing for the long run and potential green flag pit stops?
Yeah, if I was one of these guys, I'd be just trying to save tires. Those bumps, obviously, 1 and 2 are really, really rough on those outside tires, and they just shred them. So, especially from those playoff guys, you want to get a good finish here. You're not going to burn your stuff up too early and just try to maintain track position all night.
35 drivers going to take the green flag here as the 026 of Tyler Gary gets us underway. The playoffs begin in the FTF Grand National Series.
Yeah, big jump there. 3 car lengths now out in front. Jordan Worth there in P2 is just certainly side by side here, still for third.
Jordan Worth just barely missing out on making it into the playoffs, sliding into second. Nate Stewart, who ended up winning that regular season finale, if you will, that wild card race at Daytona, alongside of Sean Butler. Now, there are 5 drivers in the field here today that are not eligible for getting Grand National Series points. One of them is currently leading this race. But the way that the scenario works here is they will have 6 races before we get to Atlanta to be able to lock themselves up a spot in the playoffs. We could have as many as 8 playoff contenders still battling for the championship when we get to said season finale. Here today, it would come down to who is the highest Grand National Series points-paying driver as to who would theoretically win this race. If it's a playoff contender, they are locked in automatically to the Atlanta event.
There comes TJ Bursky on the outside of the 32 there. Sean Butler into turn 1. The nice thing about Las Vegas here, like I said, those bumps down in turns 1 and 2. If you're underneath somebody, as you see right there, good run with a 70 on the outside. You can just kind of pinch somebody down tight in the corner, and they kind of get tight up out of the corner. They can't carry the momentum down the back straightaway. And as you see here, he's trying to make the pass and now get to the outside of Jordan Worth in turn 3.
Kit Kat Toyota Supra, of course, a former winner at Michigan earlier on this season, trying to get that top line going. He will clear for that spot, moving to P3. Now tries to get the right rear quarter panel of Jordan Worth, and you gotta know other drivers are taking notice of that. You see Kolonix jumping there to the top side. More and more drivers, they'll be migrating up, which is the longer way around the racetrack, but gives you a ton of momentum off of 2 down the back straightaway and also over off of turn 4 onto the front stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And now he's trying to run the bottom again. Most of the time, running the bottom of the racetrack, as long as you do it nice and smooth, which he obviously is doing here, you can save your tires a lot better. That top lane kind of, you carry more speed to the center of the corner, and it kind of burns the rubber off faster and overheats the tires. So probably going to settle in here in P3, as you see behind him, Alex getting run on the outside there. He's also going to clear Sean Butler for P4 in the back. I've been top 10 here, single file.
Butler's going to drop back to the 5th position. Nate Stewart has dropped back 3 spots since the start to the 6th spot. And here comes Evan Rice in the 95. Now, Evan Rice was one of 5 drivers a couple of weeks ago at Daytona that had to finish the highest to get that wild card spot, get that 12th and final playoff position. He was able to do so, but the task doesn't end there, because when the points were reformatted and the playoff points were added in, Evan Rice is still sitting 12th of the 12 playoff contenders. So he needs to kind of get out of the gate early here in these playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And here comes TJ on the inside of Jordan Worth. He's going to clear him in a turn 3. Looks like Jordan kind of gave him the spot there, just trying to settle in behind him and also save his stuff. But one interesting thing there, what TJ did there, he ran even higher up 1 and 2 than what he did before. He ran all the way up close to the wall and got a really good run on the backstretch. So obviously, like you said earlier, all these guys behind him will be watching that and trying to maybe try that for themselves and see which line's kind of working better for them here.
I mentioned that 5 drivers in this field are not eligible for Grand National Series points. 2 of them are currently leading this race. Tyler Gary in the 026 and TJ Bursky, who just took that 2nd spot. Jordan Worth right now would be the highest running of the Grand National Series drivers in 3rd place. And to kind of put into perspective what I was talking about for the playoff scenario, if Worth were to be the highest finisher of Grand National Series drivers, Nate Stewart back there in 5th would not be locked into the season finale at Atlanta. So there are a number of guys like Worth, like Kolonix. They could play spoiler for some of these other playoff drivers and eliminate their golden ticket into that season finale, having them have to rely on, of course, the upcoming weeks at iRacing Superspeedway, the Charlotte Roval, Kansas, and others.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildcard tracks too. Obviously, iRacing Superspeedway is a complete madhouse. So if you can get out of here with a good result and put yourself in a good position points-wise, that's obviously what these guys are trying to looking to do. As you see, once again, TJ running all the way up. He's about a car length off the wall, but there's a lot of grip up there in that grip slip, like I mentioned in pre-race, and he's just trying to get that run on the backstretch here on your race leader, and it seems to be paying off for him pretty well.
We got a number of our playoff contenders up inside the top 10 here, though. The highest of them, Nate Stewart, Butler in 6th, Rice in 7th, and then you drop back just at the tail end of the top 10. You've got Jonathan Oates, who, after the playoff points are reformatted, in the number 1 seed coming into this one. Of course, one of 4 Grand National Series drivers that went to victory lane this season, and he's also got another playoff contender right behind him in Matthew Black. So you've got 5 playoff drivers right now up inside the top 10 early on at Las Vegas.
Yeah, kind of a top 10 breakaway, too. If you notice, there's kind of a big gap back to all those cars there, 11th on back. And interesting, way back here, and about, looks like battle for 18th, Lance Hill and all these guys really kind of jumbled up 2 and 3 wide back here and racing really hard and kind of burn their stuff up early. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of these guys have anything left if this continues to stay green here, already 10th way through the race.
It's Rich Jameson, the 86 just ahead, the 38 of Lance Hill. You've also got the 14 up top of Thomas Colhick, Gary Waterworth in the 12, another of our playoff contenders, mid-pack, but he is in the mix of this and cuts right up in front of the 53 of Justin Malello. Now we're used to seeing the Brian Mercurio driving the 62 Barr Visuals Toyota Supra, but instead driving the 44 here tonight, kind of throwing it back to the number he ran often in the NR 2027. We got trouble. That is, I believe, Tucker Minter in the 10. He's going to spin the infield grass. Does he come back up the racing surface? He does, but in the right direction. So no caution comes out there for a wild ride by the 10 machine of Tucker Minter.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And obviously, if everybody who checked up for that as well, thinking that's probably a wreck, no caution, they're all going to lose a ton of time, obviously, in the front stretch.
There's a number of playoff drivers that are running well up there inside the top 10, as we documented. How about Tristan Hagenstein, who came into this playoffs as the number 3 seed, right now mired back in traffic in 23rd, has only gained 1 spot since the start of this race. Right now running behind 53 of Justin Malello, just ahead of the 37 of Osen Walsh. Got a battle going on now. That's going to be for the 4th position. Kolonix with his rear deck lid full of Nate Stewart. And I know it's been a couple of weeks since we had that wild card race at Daytona, but just how much momentum did that victory give Nate Stewart here to start off the playoffs?
Yeah, obviously, winning a plate track's a lot different than, racing in Las Vegas, but, just carrying momentum of a win, knowing you get the monkey off your back is obviously a super big help as he gets right to the rear bumper of that 222 car through turns 3 and 4, and just probably trying to find some clean air on his nose, maybe get a little bit aero loose and trying to make that pass on him. But, one interesting thing here is, like I mentioned earlier, if you could kind of just push that car down on your inside and keep them tight, they kind of get tight up the hill and they can't turn, and so it's really difficult to pass down low here. You really want to get your outside or your fender to the outside quarter of the car in front of you that you're trying to pass and get that run up off the corner to try to complete that pass. It's going to be interesting to see if he keeps trying to run this bottom and making that work, or if he's going to move up the hill a little bit and try to get that run.
Keep seeing that 70 of TJ Bursky keep migrating up there to the top, especially through 3 and 4. Obviously trying to find some clean air to the nose, generate some speed there as well, but which line here would be the line that the tires would wear the most? Would it be the longer way around the racetrack, or would it actually be down that inside line where you don't have nearly as much banking to work with?
Yeah, it's tough to say, you know, especially in those bumps in 1 and 2, they obviously can kind of make the car skip, if you will, and kind of lose front grip, and so they kind of get burned off that way. But, you know, the higher you go, like I said, you know, the more speed you're carrying, the more you're going to overheat those outside tires. But one interesting thing to note as well is that usually, you know, when there's less rubber, you're going to burn the tires up more. But there's kind of rubber all the way across this racetrack, all the way through the corner. All the way from the white line to the outside wall. So I would say it's probably up to the driver as to what line they'd like to run. As you see, Jordan Worth could get a run there off turn 2, and he's going to try to pull back in line here, probably behind TJ, or make the pass into turn 3.
Tried to get to left rear quarter panel, was slightly successful, and will get alongside of Bursk here. Coming off of turn number 4, a couple of Supras going to duke it out for P2. Then you've got the Mustang of Colonix now drafting up behind them. As these two battle, they're stifling each other's speed, allowing 4th, 5th, 6th to be able to reel them in, make it possibly a 3, 4, 5-man fight for that runner-up spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, just as you mentioned, Alex, I'm right at the rear bumper of TJ down the back straightaway, trying to give him a little bit of a push with the air. And see if he can get to the outside of Jordan Worth as well, who's now, like I said, kind of pinched down that bottom. You see him get tight up here off turn 4. TJ, a little wiggle there, actually. Oh, in the fence! Oh, contact!
Boy, very lucky that Colonix didn't get involved there. He just barely got to the inside when Burst got the outside wall. And again, another near incident, but no caution as Burst was able to keep that thing pointing in the right direction. Granted, the wall helped quite a bit with that.
Yeah, you know, actually a lot of damage to the front end of Alex. He did get in the back of him pretty heavy there, and his front end might be pretty tore up here. So it's going to be interesting to see if the engine temps hold up for him, or if it scrubs off any speed on straightaways. He did a good job to check up in time, just no time, unfortunately, for him to react to that.
Spalding's going to get around Burst. That's weak for 6th position. Now Butler trying to take advantage of the battle scars on the 222 as he'll look for the 4th spot. Now, going back real quickly to the point I was making about the playoff situation, it also is guaranteed that the top 2 in the point standings, by the time we reach the conclusion of Martinsville, they will advance into the championship battle at Atlanta regardless of whether they have a victory or not. So also not as much about wins here during the playoffs, but also the stress is on consistency for a number of these guys that may not necessarily feel that with the upcoming races they've got a shot of going to victory lane.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, consistency wins championships has been proven in motorsports forever. And if you just continue to string good races together, obviously you want to go to victory lane as much as you can. But if you just continue, 222 gets still a little tight there off turn 2, and it looks like Sean Butler's going to clear him. But if you just continue to put it, you know, together nice runs, especially like the various different racetracks that these guys will go to in the upcoming weeks, that obviously really increases your confidence to go through and try to compete for a championship. So if they can just continue to have a good run here tonight, and then in the future weeks, that'd be a big help.
Starting to definitely see now the ill effects that contact with the outside wall has had on TJ Bursk. He's now fallen outside of the top 10, losing spots to Jonathan Oates, Evan Rice, and now Dalton Cowden. Just does not seem like that car has the straightaway speed that it had before. And he's going to be one of those guys that's really going to be looking forward to coming down pit road, trying to get some of that damage repaired. But again, FTF is one of those leagues that does not have the fast repairs. So just how much can they get repaired on that 70 car, and just how much more speed can they gain with the repairs they do make?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to keep track of. You know, obviously, these Xfinity cars, the composite bodies, Irison's done a great job to kind of model that ability to kind of repair the car and get the speed back into it. So if you just catch a caution hurtfully and get those optional repairs done, he should be at least in a decent spot to try to salvage something out of this. But he's just, you know, out there struggling right now, obviously, with that damage. It looks like his right rear tire is really overheated, and he's going to lose another spot here. Oh, caution.
And caution is indeed out. Looks like it may be for an incident towards the back. David Cabrera in the 38 has gone around to the back straightaway. Only one car there on the inside. Might have been a solo car incident, though I thought I saw a second pair of skid marks, so it could very well been a multi-car incident, but 24 laps in, and only our first caution of the day. Let's go back and see what happened over there on the back stretch.
Yeah, it looks like they're battling for 30th position there with Tucker Minter, and he just got on the outside wall there off turn 2, barely clipped the right rear in the safer barrier and got up in the outside wall and couldn't really do anything at that point, came down, and unfortunately David, just innocent victim there, gets turned around in the back and gets some damage.
Tucker Minter was, of course, trying to battle his way back up through the field after he had that semi-slide through the infield grass on the front straightaway. He had actually done a pretty good job, had picked up a couple of spots, was up around the 29th, 30th position at the time, but saw there a lot of damage to the front end of his machine, as we'll see with his onboard, and that could very well be an early exit for that 10 Chevrolet.
Yeah, big hit on the inside wall there, and Tyre knows that car is gone, so he immediately towed back to pit road. Not sure if he's going to try to get it out here, get some more spots, or if he's going to pull it behind the wall.
Tucker Minter was one of those drivers coming in tonight that was ineligible for getting Grand National Series points. We had already documented a few of the other ones as well, Tyler Gary and TJ Burst. The other ones that would also fit that criteria this evening, Brian Mercurio in the 44 and the 048, being driven here this evening by, I believe I just had him and I just lost him, Will Klein. So those drivers, if they were to win, it would not count as a Grand National Series win for those drivers in terms of the statistics and the gaining of points. Interesting call here. Just about everybody came to pit road with the exception of the race leader and playoff contender, Jake Poulin. Now, Poulin ended up winning the very first race this season at Daytona, which secured him a spot in the playoffs. Looks like he's trying some off-sequence strategy here to maybe do the same thing in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is really interesting, as Tyler Greer, he's actually going to pull off on pit road and give up that lead. But Jake's going to stay out here, and only car and old tires. He's obviously not going to have any buffer whatsoever to hold these guys off on 4 fresh tires. And after 25 laps, that's going to be a huge advantage. So he's going to be kind of a sitting duck here on this restart.
So what was the case here for the race leader? Did he fully expect that nobody else was going to be coming down pit road here and everybody would still be on equal footing, and maybe just kind of got caught flat-footed with whatever the leader does do the opposite?
Yeah, I'm not really entirely sure, to be honest. 25 laps here, like we mentioned in the pre-race, the tire wear here is absolutely insane. So that's a pretty interesting call to, stay out after a quarter of the race is already in the books. But, obviously he's got something figured out. There's tire limits as well. These guys only get 4 sets of tires, if I'm reading this correctly. So who knows? Maybe he's trying to save that set for a agreement checker at the end if it comes down to it.
I saw a number of drivers kind of turn to the left off of the right side of our screen. That's because that blue cone coming off of pit road exit, that is actually the choose cone for tonight. So Jake Poulin stayed to the right of it, choosing the outside line. Jordan Worth moved to the left of it, choosing the inside line for this restart. So keep that in mind here when we end up having the lights go out atop that pace car. That's the choose cone, where the drivers get to choose which lane they want to restart in, as first restart of the night is going to come at the conclusion of lap 26, going on to lap 27. That 00 Hellman Chevrolet Camaro going to be the control car.
Goes super early and gets a good jump there. Good job not spinning the tires on those old tires, as Jordan Worth going to try to get a good run here. Interesting note as well, unfortunately, Matthew Zwack did not get a good restart there, but he did choose the outside lane when nobody else did to follow that 00 and gain about 4 positions out of it. So he's now going to fall back in line here in 5th, as he's going to get to the inside of Jake down the back straightaway and maybe 3 wide here to turn 3.
That's going to be close there between himself and Jonathan Oates, as they're going to send the 00 up to the top side. Oates is actually going to complete the pass before they get to the center of 3 and 4. Zwack will slot back now into the 5th spot. Evan Rice now moves up to 6th, as that 00 is free falling through the field. And that gives an idea of fresh Goodyears as opposed to tires that have 25 laps on them.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just going to go all the way through the field here and hopefully, obviously try to keep his nose clean and not get tore up, as he's right up against the outside wall there off turn 2, and now the rest of the field are going to try to just snake their way through around him on the inside.
Yeah, 34 drivers take the green flag, 32 of them still on the lead lap and still running. Tucker Minter still on pit lane getting damage repaired, and TJ Bursk, who we saw get the wall a ton off of turn 4 early on in this one, he's made the hard left-hand turn to the garage, so he will not finish out this event, as Matt Spalding making a move there to the inside of Jordan Worth. Those two still looking for their first win of their Grand National Series career, and they've got Nate Stewart, who was victory lane 2 weeks ago, breathing down their necks.
Yeah, he's just trying to figure out, obviously which lane is going to prevail here. It looks like he's going to stay with Jordan on the outside as they get really tight here off turn 4, right up against the back bumper of Jordan Worth. Maybe looking to make it through on the outside. Looks like he's going to probably tuck it back in line here.
Yeah, not going to quite be able to get to the right rear quarter panel of the 92, so they'll stay side by side between Spalding and Worth. Spalding with a nice entry there through the center, rolls the center, and he will get the race lead by the time they come off of turn number 2. Keep an eye on Jonathan Oates now there as well. The playoff points leader has entered into the mix. Throw a blanket over the top 4, and if they continue to battle, that's going to bring just about everybody inside the top 10. 3 wide behind them. That's Kevin McAdams out of Speed Incorporated driving the 0-2 this week. Mercurio to his outside, Dalton Cowden on the bottom.
Yeah, it looks like Dalton Cowden's going to barely clear both of them. Nice move there for him to make it through wide and get both of those spots as Mercurio is trying to hit his rear quarter panel. It looks like the 117 will set right in front of him here to the back as Brian Mercurio crosses him over, looks down to the inside quarter into turn 3 for that 7th spot. Looks like he's going to give it to him.
One driver that did not have the pit stop he was looking for, Sean Butler. We saw him up there inside of the top 5 early on in this one. He is now mired all the way back in the 22nd position. Another driver back there as well, Tyler Gary in the 026, who we saw kind of get caught out with pit road strategy. But for that 32 car, this is not good because he was up there in semi-clean air early on in this thing. And as we know, you get back there in traffic, that car is going to handle a lot different than it was early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Clean air is everything. And speaking of, Nate Stewart and Jonathan Oates actually both just got by Matt Spalding for the race lead. And they're already both pulling away by a few car lengths. So this will be interesting to see here. If this stays green for a while, I'll be interested to see if Matt let him go and is trying to just conserve his tires for later in this run.
Well, both of these drivers, Stewart and Oates, entered the playoffs as winners this season. Of course, Stewart winning at Daytona, Oates winning at Michigan, and the both of them came into this race in the number 1 and 2 seed. 13 points back was Nate Stewart. So you know that he wants to make sure he keeps that 73 in his rearview mirror, gets that automatic ticket into the championship battle at Atlanta, but still a long ways to go in this one, though, as we're only about to complete the 33rd lap, about a third of the way through this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with that, there's going to be another pit stop in here if we manage to stay green, which so far, obviously through this race, it's had a green flag look to it. So pit stops here also aren't the easiest. The entry off turn 4 is extremely difficult. So these guys are probably just settling a run right now, and we're going to see how these guys play the strategies out, because I believe you can go about 40 laps on a tank of gas with these cars, maybe closer to 50. And it's going to be interesting to see how they split up this run to try to strategize how they want to conserve the tires now.
Especially if we kind of go off of what happened on that first long green flag run. That caution kind of came from out of nowhere and happened between 2 cars that were basically running by themselves, not where you would necessarily expect to see a yellow flag wave. Obviously, there's something to be gained for these drivers if they decide to pit maybe a little bit sooner than others. They could pick up some positions with the fresher Goodyears, but do you want to run that risk of losing a lap and have a random caution come out, trapping you off the lead lap?
Yeah, absolutely. Pit strategy on a green is obviously one of the most crucial elements to a race, and it's also one of the most difficult decisions to make. And as you see, the 37 here of Walsh really pinched that 117 down tight in the corner and trying to, close racing like this is like what obviously causes cautions, and so you have a lot of guys maybe that are communicating with each other about these other cars racing each other tight and having high risk of a caution. Others in the field might be kind of changing their strategy based off that of when they want to come down for a pit road and get those 4 first tires.
Walsh going to complete that pass around the top side of Dalton Cowden. You run the risk, though, if you try and pinch that car on the inside down, because you're basically relying on the fact that that car on the inside line is not going to push up the track, not going to clip the apron, because you're the one that's going to go up into the wall if they make a mistake.
Yeah, always a kind of fine line of where you want to push and pinch to kind of get that spot and get that run off the corner, but also, like you said, the car on the inside, you're putting their full faith into that car on the inside and not pushing up the hill or making any kind of, dart up the racetrack. So it's obviously a very fine line. At this point in the race, I'm sure these guys are, kind of playing that in their mind, especially these playoff guys who have a lot of race for right now. They're not going to probably race quite as aggressively or pinch it quite as aggressively as the other guys who are, trying to basically not get wrecked.
Nice job by a couple of playoff contenders to start working their way up since the drop of the green flag. We saw Gary Waterworth mired back in traffic early on. He's now knocking on the door of the top 10 and 11th place, and Lucas Palesel in that 45 right now battling with Will Klein in the 048. That is for the 14th position. So a couple of guys that might be some underdogs, some dark horses here in the playoffs, doing very well, keeping themselves in contention just outside of the top 10, and who knows, depending on what happens in the second half of this race, a good finish, maybe even a guaranteed spot in the finale at Atlanta could fall into their laps. You've got to have yourself in position first off, though, for something like that to happen, and both of them doing a good job for the time being, keeping their noses clean, staying in the running.
Yeah, absolutely, and Alex Von Alex right behind him. You know, we mentioned that damage he got from TJ Bursk, the contact with TJ Bursk, and he's still keeping it up there in the 16th position currently with that front end damage. So doing a nice job managing that. I'm not sure if he was able to get a lot of that fixed. It looks like it's slightly better than what it was before, but even still, I'm sure it's hurt that car a little bit, and he's making the most of it right now.
A couple of drivers that are struggling that are playoff contenders. There are actually two drivers that have victories this season, and both of those wins were at super speedways. Jake Poulin in the 00, we know is off sequence. He's way off the pace with those older tires. He's now dropped back to the last car on the lead lap in the 32nd spot, and he will probably be having to come to pit road somewhere in the next 10 to 20 laps. The other driver would be Brent Punkari, our Talladega winner, right now running by his lonesome in the 27th position. These two guys, I don't know necessarily what's going on with the 035. We know about the strategy there with the 00. The last thing you want to do is have yourself in a bit of a deficit here, but the way that the playoff system works here for this Grand National Series, you can kind of run the risk of something like that because you can use these races as mulligan races. All you got to worry about is in 1 week being the highest Grand National Series finisher in those results, and it's automatically got you in the championship picture for Atlanta. So it gives these guys a lot more wiggle room in terms of strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's a lot of races that kind of have, especially different tracks, to kind of have good runs and some, you know, kind of bad runs. But up front, as I mentioned, Jonathan Oates, who took that second position earlier for Matt Spalding, he's kind of fallen back through the field there. It seems like he may have burned his tires up a little bit too early in this run, and he's gotten passed now by Matt Spalding and Jordan Worth as he's currently battling Matthew Zwack for that fifth position.
Mercurio right there as well in that 44 machine, looking to the inside of Jonathan Oates. Whack! Clearing himself there off of turn 2, but that was awfully dicey. Wasn't quite sure with that camera angle if indeed he was clear on the front end of that Ford Mustang, but he does complete the pass. Mercurio slides by for 5th place as well, and now Jonathan Oates finds a little place to tuck in line in the 6th position, about 3-4 car lengths before you get back to that 98 of Evan Rice.
Oh, we got a car sideways on the apron back there. I believe that is, Gary Watersworth. He was a little sideways there on the apron trying to get underneath the O2 car. And that's something that's also kind of interesting with the tire wear here is that shortcut on the apron. You can kind of use it to your advantage if you're trying to get around somebody. But obviously with it not having any banking, it's going to burn your tires off. And that transition can also be pretty rough coming back onto the bank in the tri-oval.
Yeah, Las Vegas having that white line that runs around the inside of the racetrack. That's just a guideline for drivers to know where the racetrack ends and the apron begins, but they can go down there to their heart's content to try to make passes. The other thing they kind of run the risk of as well on the front straightaway is if you run that apron, you've got to hope you clear that driver that you're trying to pass. Otherwise, you're going to have a very shallow entry into the upcoming turn 1 and maybe have to bail on the throttle a lot more than you'd want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with those bumps to the extent of that corner, it's going to get really tight if you don't get the arc into the corner. And so you see now everybody's kind of single foul out, trying to get some clean air in the nose. You see, it looks like, one car almost on the wall right there. It's Walsh on the 37, as they're going to get a big run on him here into turn 1. It looks to the inside. Belton Cowden trying to get around on the inside, but like I said, just getting tight on those bumps. Looks like he's going to try to tuck up back behind him here off turn 2.
Battle for the 4th spot. Brian Mercurio makes the pass on Matthew Zwack. We had a battle for the lead there momentarily as Spalding took a peek on Nate Stewart. Nothing doing there off of turn 2. Tucks back in line, and that slight loss of momentum now brings Jordan Worth to his rear deck lid. Yeah,
like I said, Nate Stewart also kind of looks like he may have burned tires off just a little bit more than Matt Spalding, who kind of gave the spots up early in the run to make sure that he could conserve his tire. They're not coming back to him and getting that good run on Nate Stewart, trying to lead back away as Jordan Worth is also falling right up through here.
Matt Spalding pulling back up there to the 4, who may have brushed the wall just a tiny bit there off of turn 2. loses a little bit of speed, and Spalding to the inside, at least halfway alongside of that Speed Visions Toyota Supra, but not able to get the power down through the center. Outside line prevails again. Nate Stewart going to lead us back to the start-finish line.
Yeah, good defense there by Nate Stewart. You know, if you kind of just run that second lane, it's tough for that car behind to get that good run on the inside, like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. So if he just controls that second lane and doesn't let Spalding get to his outside, he may have a good chance here of at least holding him off for that lead for a good while. But you see Matt Spalding get a good run now into turn 3, looking back to the inside, up to his quarter panel. But it's just going to be difficult to get around the 4 car on the inside when he pinches him down.
Jordan Worth there in the 92, trying to figure out which lane he wants to run. Ran the shorter way around the track on the inside through 3 and 4. Continues to run in the draft of the 47. Might be trying to help propel him up in front. Now he'll jump up to the middle line, and Brian Mercurio now going to enter into this mix. Mercurio, a multi-time winner this season, would love to add another win into his total this season. Of course, not battling for the Grand National Series Championship or for Grand National Series points, but still, that's not going to hinder him from trying to find victory lane.
Yeah, the nice part about him doing this right now is that he can kind of watch these guys race it out and burn their tires off even more while he's still back there single file with no real pressure behind him. So he can just kind of continue to run his line, be nice and smooth, and try to pick off these guys one at a time. As you see, again, Matt Spalding just kind of stuck down the inside now. They've been side by side for a couple laps as Jordan Worth is trying to use Nate Stewart here kind of as a pick. If he can get around the outside of Matt Spalding where they're still side by side for the lead, that puts him now in the position with the best tires and kind of the first guy that maybe he try to also pass Nate Stewart later on.
Yeah, Spalding was trying to defend there, but Worth was alongside his right rear quarter panel off of turn 2. Spalding again battling on the inside here through 3 and 4. That time a little bit better on exit, keeps alongside of the 4 machine, and this is just going to keep wadding these guys up. You had Mercurio enter the mix. Matthews waxing out about to get up here. Then you got about maybe 10 car lengths till you get back to about between Jonathan Oates and Evan Rice. So I don't know if necessarily they're going to get up into this battle anytime soon, as they've got a pretty good 3-way battle. Add Oates and Walsh into this mix.
Yeah, 5-car battle for lead here. Absolutely insane as we reach the halfway point. And you see Jordan Worth now, he looks like he might get clear here of Spalding the other front straightaway. It looks like he will. So that is huge for Jordan Worth, like I said, to try to get into that position to then try to pass Nate Stewart for the race lead. And Brian Mercurio falling right through. Actually looks like he might try to get up the outside, but he's going to tuck back the line as they all just kind of run single file on that high side. But Matt Spalding looks like he's going to get cleared by Jordan Worth and now going to try to defend against Brian Mercurio for that 3rd spot.
Keeping an eye here on Jake Poulin to see when he's eventually going to make his first pit stop of the day. He's been out there 52 laps on his set of tires and has not come to pit road yet. The problem for him, though, is that he is only about 10 seconds ahead of the race leaders. If he pits now, he's definitely going to lose a lap, but if he doesn't pit, he may end up going a lap down to green flag conditions before he even gets to his pit stop.
Yeah, and he's probably running pretty low on fuel as well. He's probably going to make a pit stop here in the next 10 laps, like I said earlier. And now you see Brian Mercurio did exactly what Jordan Worth did and Matt Spalding. He's going to get to the outside behind Nate Stewart and try to take over that provisional leader spot, if you will, with Nate Stewart kind of being the guy to hold everybody up here as it gets really tight off turn 4.
Wow, it did. Jordan Worth almost pushed up into the driver's side door of Nate Stewart there, very tight off the final corner. You see the 92 had to lift a little bit there. That's going to bring Brian Mercurio alongside him and potentially for the 2nd spot. And if you're Brian Mercurio, you're kind of walled in here, but I don't know if there's necessarily enough grip up in that 3rd line to be able to take it 3 wide.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, honestly. None of these guys have tried to do that. Nate Stewart's running right in the middle groove to try to hold the guy down the bottom, and nobody's really trying to get to his outside, all up against the outside wall, as he looks like he may be trying to go up the middle right there, as Nate Stewart kind of ran higher, but he's going to stay in line here behind Nate Stewart. We're going to see for how long he'll do that, though.
Riding on board here with Brian Mercurio, you can see quite a bit of hand motion there, trying to keep that car pointed in the right direction. Nice move there by Jordan Worth as he will complete the, well, I guess we'll call it a slide job. Tucks up in front of Nate Stewart. Stewart going to cross him over, though, going into 3 and 4. Thinks better of it, lifts off the throttle. He's not going to quite get alongside the 92. Instead, he's going to have his hands full with Mercurio on the top side.
Yeah, that was a huge move there by Jordan Worth. Really aggressive, but obviously it paid huge dividends for him, as now Nate Stewart on those kind of more used tires, pinched down the bottom. He's probably going to lose quite a few spots here, all these guys on the outside.
Now, for Jordan Worth, mentioned the fact that he did not advance into the playoffs, but there is still a lot to race for him and other drivers like Justin Malello, Ethan Corder, Rich Jameson, Jack Painter, drivers that did not advance into the playoffs, because it was also announced that when we eventually get to the season finale at Atlanta, the drivers that lock themselves into the playoffs, they will have a battle amongst themselves. All the other playoff contenders that did not advance into the championship picture, they revert back to the points they would have had if they had not made the playoffs at all. That gives an opportunity maybe for Jordan Wirth. If he can have 2, 3, 4 consistent runs up inside the top 10, he could find himself outside the top 12 heading into Atlanta, and then up inside the top 10, maybe up around 8th or 9th position in the final standings.
Yeah, it is absolutely capitalizing right now on the first race here of the playoffs at Las Vegas. Currently leading the way here ahead of Brian Mercurio. He's got about 0.2 of a second lead, and looks like he's in a pretty good rhythm here, and his tires just nice and smooth every single lap, running that middle groove, trying to straddle those bumps and just kind of not really pulling away much, but kind of maintaining with the 44 machine.
An eye on a couple of drivers that have slowly, methodically been working their way up towards the front of the field. They've just now cracked the top 10. Will Klein, the 048, is now up to 9th. Tyler Gary, who started on the pole and led the early portions of this one, he's now up into the 10th position. That last time by, Tyler Gary was the 3rd fastest on the speed charts. Will Klein was the fastest. He's actually the fastest again this past lap, so back-to-back laps that he's the fastest car on track. So obviously that 048 has some tremendous long-run speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice job of saving his tires. Is currently in battle for, it looks like, 12th place. Sean Blair just got around Jonathan Oates, and now Nathan Rabideau going to go to the inside of that 73 machine down the back straightaway and into turn 3. Jonathan Oates, if you remember, on the restart, he went all the way up to 2nd place, and unfortunately for him, he's just kind of plummeted back through the field here on his 4 Goodyear Eagles.
Safe to say that when the pit window opens, that 73 might be the first one on pit road?
Yeah, absolutely. If you burn your tires up early, it catches the fence there into turn 1. Luckily, not too hard, but if you burn your tires up early, obviously it's very enticing to be that guy to short pit and burn everybody else down pit road and make them follow you, and that way you obviously gain those advantage on those 4 fresh tires. You kind of get lap time every single lap you're out there ahead of those guys in old tires, and it'd be interesting to see here when he decides to split this run up in half, because like I said earlier, these guys can go about 50 laps on a tank of gas. It looks like he's probably going to go maybe 10 more laps or so and kind of split the run up in half, but at the same time, short pit everybody else when they try to pit in their pit window.
Jordan Wirth trying to hold off 3-time winner this season, Brian Mercurio, about 2.5 car lengths between those two, another 3 car lengths back to Matt Spalding, then another 2.5 car lengths back to Nate Stewart. Matthew Zwack completing the top 5. Only 1 caution here in the first 60 laps of this race. 40 laps to go. Here is, wow, Nate Stewart, big slide there in that 4th position off of turn 4. A nice job keeping that thing underneath him, but only 3 drivers out of the race at this point in time. Lance Hill has recently gone back to the garage area, joining TJ Bursky and Tucker Minter, and Jake Poulin just hit pit road for the first time here this race. He's going to lose 2 laps as a result, though, back in the 31st position. Obviously now he is one of those guys that does not want to see the caution come out. He wants to see this thing possibly cycle around, and I believe with him pitting when he did, he would be able to make it the rest of the way on fuel just around the 40 lap to go crest. Yeah,
absolutely. He can go from here on out, and obviously, like you said, if a caution flag comes out, he gets trapped 2 laps down, and the race is kind of over for him. So if he can just stay green here, get his lap back, and then have a caution to get the lucky dog, he should be back in position to try to make up some more spots and get an lead lap. But he's going to drive his way through the field here. All these guys are running about 33-second lap times, and earlier in the run, they were running 31-second lap times. So it's going to be 2 seconds faster a lap as he gets right up behind the 27 machine there of Tristan Hagenstein, and he's going to just try to claw his way through the field here, and that's where all these guys who are on old tires have to make sure they know that he's on fresh tires and be very vigilant where he is.
He's going to pick up a spot right there, bypassing the 88 of Marcus Siasco, who we saw on pit lane and completely overshoot his pit stall. He was about a good pit stall and a half ahead of where his pit box even was, so some valuable time lost for the 88. So a battle there for the moment for the race lead. Mercurio got to the inside alongside of Jordan Wirth, just could not get the power down. Tucks back in line, and we'll try again here momentarily. It's a hornet's nest back here, though. This is around the 9th, 10th position. You got Tyler Gary, Ocean Walsh, Dalton Cowden, Kevin McAdams, Sean Butler, all wadded up together around 8th through 12th.
Yeah, it's an absolute pack, and see 37 there of Walsh kind of get tied up off the corner, and here comes that 00 come flying around these guys in the back straightaway. That just shows the speed difference right there in fresh rubber. As he's going to try to claw his way through here, and these guys all battling for positions to top 10. Works the inside there, the 37. Looks like we got some more guys headed up pit road.
Yes, we do. We had just moments ago Zach Hudson hit pit lane. Looks like Nate Stewart and Matthew Zwack, a couple of Supras, are going to come down pit road this time from up inside of the top 5.
Yeah, and obviously Nate Stewart, like I said earlier, kind of burned up those tires a little bit early as they got the 88 to work with here entering their pit stalls, and looks like he gets them smoothly. But I'm kind of surprised Jonathan Hudson didn't come down with him, to be honest. But Nate Stewart, one of those guys who kind of burned his tires up a little bit early. It looks like he maybe overshot his pit box. Can't quite get in there nice and clean, so it's going to take a little bit longer for him, unfortunately. But, you know, obviously, if you use your tires up early in the run, it's better to come down and get those tires earlier so that way you can try to gain back some of that lost ground and not be kind of stuck out there and just use those tires.
Saw those rear tires lock up for Ocean Walsh as he comes down to the attention of his crew. There's the 73 of Jonathan Oates going by as well. Isaac Johnson, the 33, was on pit road the lap before. Looks like also Rich Jameson on pit road this time. And I believe Adam Sweet was on pit road a couple of laps ago in the 55. Top 2, none of them coming down pit road. We did have a car just ahead of them coming down, though. I believe that was the 48 of Andy Margot, who just went a lap down.
Yeah, and this is obviously that box that these leaders kind of get put in. You obviously don't want to pit and have somebody else stay out and catch a caution because then you're kind of trapped behind them a lap down. And so, but you also have these guys behind them who are now coming down for fresh rubber. Nate Stewart, he was right there in P4, so at this point he's already gained quite a few seconds on these leaders just by running out there on those 4 fresh Peter Eagles as the 00 now gets around all of them, gets one of those laps back, which is very crucial for him in case a caution flag does come out.
So he will now be -1. Will Jake Poulin. More drivers heading for pit road. Evan Rice in the 98 now ducking onto pit lane. And these guys have to make sure they get these cars woed up because the way things are looking right now, the potentiality of this race going green to the checkered flag, the last thing you want to do is get busted for speeding on pit road, lose all that valuable track position.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a complete race ender at this point in time. As it looks like some more guys up front, maybe going to come down pit road this time. Not any of our current leaders, but I heard some guys on the radio there calling out they were going to pit. Looks like Tristan Heckenstein is still out there in old tires, actually. Nate Stewart and Zach Hudson absolutely blast on the outside of here. And that's the thing, too. This is the most likely time for a caution flag to come out. When you have these guys on fresh tires, just absolutely blowing by these guys on old tires, it's obviously the easiest part of the run to have a caution flag come out. So maybe that's what some of these guys up front are maybe trying to factor into their strategy. And it's the 035 car of Brett is going to be coming down pit road this time.
Because Palesel to 45 hitting pit road, now getting service in his stall. Also, Spencer Ray in the 19 was on pit road. We saw the 12 of Gary Waterworth, playoff contender. He was on pit lane a couple laps ago. There's the aforementioned Brent Punkari coming down to his pit stall. Ooh, overshoots it there. A lot of drivers having some issues with that. And I have to assume that's because you've got the asphalt to concrete transition to the pit stall, and these front tires have taken a beating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot more tough to slow down from 50 to 0 than you might think, especially with that.
Mercurio sliding that thing with those rear tires. Big lockup for the 44.
Yeah, that was a really good save there and barely managed to get down beneath pace car speed. So that was a really good catch for him. Obviously, like you said earlier, speeding penalty would be absolutely everything here. It looks like he gets into his box. Oh, overshoots as well.
A lot of drivers been having issues with that as Davey Davis, the 305 on pit road. We saw the pole sitter Tyler Gary on pit road. And here comes the race leader, Jordan Worth, trying to get that thing woed up on the transition from the banking to the apron. Nice smooth transition there as he hits the commitment line. He's going to give up the race lead to Nathan Rabideau. Will Klein is on pit road this time. Kevin McAdams, Sean Butler following him in.
Yeah, obviously, Brian Mercurio kind of let all those guys down around him. As soon as he pits, they all have to pit right after him, or else they're going to lose a ton of time to him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Even that one lap difference might be a huge advantage for that number 44 machine. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually leapfrog Jordan Worth during his pit cycle.
Interesting call here by Nathan Rabideau in the 93. Fourth in the playoff standing seed. 15 points out of the points lead. Gets himself maybe a bonus point there for a lap led, and now we'll head to pit road for his service. That turns the race lead over to the 222 of Alex Kalonix, who I can only assume is only a couple of laps away from when he'll have to come to pit road. Thomas Kohick and Justin Malello are the drivers we are waiting on to complete this green flag cycle, and we are nearing 25 laps to go here at Vegas.
Yeah, and like I said, Brian Mercurio now has about a 15 car length lead on Jordan Worth. Just that one lap difference here at Las Vegas can make a huge difference on the pace for Fresh Goodyear Eagles. So he's absolutely blown past Jordan Worth and now has a huge advantage when this cycle's back around.
As of the moment, it looks like Matthew Zwack might be in line to get the race lead, as he's currently scored in 4th place, just ahead of Nate Stewart. These two have already taken on service. Zach Hudson, who was one of the first to come to pit road there, as was Adam Sweet, they are actually now up in 6th and 8th, so that short pitting really worked out for them in terms of track position. The question is, though, now their tires are going to wear down a lot quicker than the others around them. Can they hang on to these top 10 spots?
Yeah, they have a really big advantage on us. If they're so far in front, I forgot they were actually on that strategy, to be honest. They're absolutely gone, but like I said, those 5-lap difference in tires, that could be a difference for these guys to kind of reel them back in and try to close that big gap. So it'll be interesting to see, especially if they race a show, which Nate Stewart is right behind Matthew Zwack, trying to get away that provisional lead. And just it'll be interesting to see if that 5-lap difference will be an advantage for Ryan Mercurio and nobody else in that strategy.
Justin Malello on pit road, giving up the unofficial 3rd position. Now we're waiting on the top 2 of Kalonix and Kohick to come to pit road. This is the battle here potentially for the race lead when everything cycles around, and it's between 2 playoff contenders. They know that if they take the checkered flag here tonight, they go into iRacing Superspeedway, the Charlotte Roval, Kansas, Belle Isle, and Martinsville, knowing that they are going to battle for that championship when we get to the finale at Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to obviously fight super hard for that. All those racetracks are super wildcard racetracks for these guys, and if they get out of here to a normal mile and a half with a nice, entry spot into there, it'd be perfect. But like I said, that interesting strategy difference here between these guys who short pit and the guys who didn't. Brian Mercurio and Jordan Worth out there who just pit, they're running half a second faster already compared to these leaders. So if it continues to cycle around, they're only about 5 seconds behind as they continue to shrink that gap. It'll be interesting to see here with 23 laps to go if they can run them back down.
Thomas Kohick now coming to pit road, so we're now just waiting on Kalonix to come to pit lane for his final pit stop of the day. Drivers here on this round of green flag pit stop did a great job of getting their cars woed down, but unfortunately the speed police did bust somebody, and it was someone who was actually up here towards the front battling for the lead most of this race. The 31 of Matt Spalding was hit with a speeding penalty. He is now 1 lap down, mired all the way back in the 30th position.
Yeah, obviously super unfortunate. Like you said, crucial. You cannot make a mistake during this green flag run. And one of those front runners, like you said, just really up there bound for the lead, and pit stop cycle changes everything for his entire race. It's really unfortunate.
We saw a lot of our playoff contenders up here inside the top 10, the early portions of this race. Now, as you look at it, you've got Zwack currently in 2nd, Nate Stewart in 3rd, Evan Rice right now in the 6th position, and that's it of your playoff contenders. So we went from about 5 playoff drivers up inside the top 10 back around lap 20 to now 3 playoff contenders up inside the top 10 coming to 20 to go.
Yeah, and Alex Kalonix in that 222, he's still out there hoping to try to catch a caution. Especially at this point in the run now, if we do get a yellow flag during the cycle before he has to come down pit road for fuel, everybody else will pit and he'll actually gain the race lead out of it. So it'll be a perfect strategy if he can get lucky enough to get a yellow. But obviously we've gone green flag here since that first caution, so likelihood is not very high, but if it does work out, it'll pay huge dividends for him.
Gary Waterworth in the 21st position coming around and getting his lap back. Look at the 55 of Adam Sweet. Now, I had him projected able to make it the rest of the way. He pitted about 4 laps prior to a number of the race leaders, so he should have been able to make it on fuel, but he's back down pit road again, so I can only assume this is an unscheduled stop for him. He was running at the time up around inside the top 15. That obviously will not be the case in the finishing results, and good mixing up here for the 5th spot. That's where you've got Brian Mercurio trying to pull away from the battle between Jordan Worth, Ocean Walsh, Evan Rice, and Dalton Cowden.
Yeah, and he's actually done a good job. Jordan Worth, even on those 1 lap first tires, he's kind of closed in that gap that he had to Brian Mercurio as soon as they exited pit road. And speaking of that, they've already closed in on Matthew Zwack and Nate Stewart. They're now only 1.5 seconds behind them and still running half a second faster a lap. So this advantage for them will be absolutely huge. As they still have 19 laps to go, I think they'll easily get there via 18 in the 4 machines.
Yeah, don't let the telemetry on the left side of your screen fool you. What you're seeing there, the 10-11 seconds, is them in relation to the 2:22 of Colonix, who still has to come to pit road. It's the 18 that they're chasing, and to your point, they are less than 2 seconds away. 18 laps to go, still plenty of time for sure to be able to reel those guys in, as Worth now is up into the 5th spot, eventually going to be 4th. Mercurio up into what will eventually be 3rd place. And looking also in terms of lap times, I mean, these two guys are running 32 flats. Zwack and Stewart that last time by, they ran in the 32 6s to 32 8s. So definitely reeling them in, and this could be very interesting in the closing stages of this one at Vegas.
Yeah, and you see Nate Stewart there as this battle for 3rd already happens. Nate Stewart going to get past here with Brian Mercurio in the front stretch, and Brian Mercurio now sets its sights on the 18 machine, Matthew Zwack, but Nate Stewart right there kind of got loose up out of that corner and just trying to drive as aggressively as he can to try to, obviously keep these spots. Jordan Worth also going to get by him, but interesting, honestly, Jordan Worth really has closed in that gap, Brian Mercurio, for only having pit a lap later, and I'm not sure if Brian Mercurio is still kind of saving his stuff for later in this run or what, but Jordan Worth has really gotten there too and put the pressure on him.
Now remember with the scenario I stated at the top of the program with how it works, Matthew Zwack, he can let Brian Mercurio around him and he would still be the highest running of the drivers that are getting Grand National Series points. So he would theoretically, and I put this in air quotes, get the win and get the locked up spot in the playoffs. But he cannot let the 92 of Jordan Worth around him, because Worth as a Grand National Series driver would take away that automatic ticket into the championship picture at Atlanta.
Another point to make here, that 222 of Alex Colonix, he had to come down, unfortunately, to get fuel, and therefore that strategy obviously won't be paying out for him, as here comes Brian Mercurio to the inside of Matthew Zwack now for the race lead. He's going to get that pretty easily in the third one.
Mercurio going to clear before they even get to the first corner. Jordan Worth sees the door open. He'll stick his foot in, and he will complete the pass around the 18 of Matthew Zwack. There was about 5 to 7 lap fresher tires there with the 44 and the 92 in relation to the 18. You saw it there in terms especially of the straightaway speed. Now if you're Jordan Worth, how anxious are you going to be to mix it up with Brian Mercurio? Mercurio has 3 wins on the season. Worth, who is not a playoff contender, still looking for his first.
Yeah, he's going to be very aggressive as Walsh here on a 37 machine. I saw him get really squirrely off turn 4. He's did a lot of damage. Not entirely sure what happened to that machine. He was running upside the top 10, so that's really unfortunate here in the late stages.
Definitely see that right rear damage there on that 37 Ford. He was battling at the time with, I believe it was Dalton Cowden for the 8th spot, now dropping outside of the top 10 to the 13th position. Traffic for Mercurio to have to deal with. That's the 00 of Jake Poulin, the 45 of Lucas Palesso, a couple of playoff contenders. Now these two have their own little battle going on, because obviously you want to finish ahead of every playoff contender you possibly can, at the same time trying to be courteous and letting the race leaders battle it out for the win.
Yeah, absolutely, as maybe Jordan Worth can use one of these lap cars to get by all of those guys. There's still plenty up ahead. You may be able to try to use one of these lap cars, kind of like what we saw earlier with Nate Stewart when he was up front there in the start of the last run, and maybe try to get to the outside of Brian Mercurio. It might be kind of the only way you can get around him, but he's still kind of just absolutely hounded him for the race lead here. Coming up to 10 laps to go very soon. It's going to be interesting to see if he has anything for him.
Incredible that we've been able to go the entire of this race with only 1 caution. We've seen a cycle of green flag pit stop setting us up here for the finish of this race. And even more importantly, with 34 drivers that took the green, 31 are still running on the racetrack, 24 of them on the lead lap. Right now, your playoff contenders run as follows. Zwack is the highest running in 3rd. Nate Stewart just lost a position, dropping back to 5th. Evan Rice is up to 7th place. Sean Butler now in the top 10, holding down 10th place. Nathan Rabideau, who pulled a long pit road strategy, is right now in 12th. Jonathan Oates currently holds 14th, and Brent Punkari now back up there inside the top 15 in that 15th spot. Tristan Hagenstein right behind him in 16th place. Gary Waterworth finds himself in 20th. Jake Poulin, who just went a lap down, first car 1 lap down, in 25th. 26th is Lucas Palesso, and that's where your playoff drivers run right now, closing in on 10 laps to go at Las Vegas, but it's a couple of Supras trying to settle it out here. Mercurio in the 44, Jordan Worth in the 92.
Yeah, you see Jordan kind of trying to get his left front beneath Mercurio through the center of the corner to try to get that left front in some clean air and get some downforce on the front of that number 92 Supra. And now Brian Mercurio actually is running that second lane, trying to straddle his bumps to the center of turns 1 and 2. And Jordan Worth trying to use that to his advantage to see him get to the inside, but it's just tough to kind of battle with that run off the corner.
Let's remember back when Jordan Worth took the race lead away from Nate Stewart. He kind of pulled the slide job and cleared himself across the nose of the 4. Would that be something he would keep in his hip pocket to maybe use against Brian Mercurio here in the closing stages?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, if Mercurio is running that high side. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite as easy as it was before since they're pretty even on tire wear here. But he's trying to run that middle lane now, actually. He's following Mercurio through that line, kind of learned from a little bit. He gets really free off turn 2 and has to try to catch it.
Nice comeback run there for our pole sitter Tyler Gary. Led the first 25 laps of this race and then kind of got caught out on pit road strategy when pit road was open. Everybody came down pit road. He stayed out. He then came down the following lap and restarted outside the top 20. He's been able to make his way now up to the 5th position, following in the tire tracks of Will Klein, who's now up to 4th place. They are moments away from possibly battling with Matthew Zwack for the final spot inside the podium, but all that is going on over a second and a half behind this 2-car battle, potentially for the race lead. Now, if you're Jordan Worth, do you want this thing to stay green, continue to try sizing up the 44, or would you maybe like to see a late race caution come out and have a shot on fresh tires at Mercurio?
Yeah, obviously it's tough to kind of tell exactly what Jordan Worth's got going on here. It looks like Brian Mercurio is barely ever so slightly, if you want to call it much of a gap that he's kind of extended out to here. So if Jordan Worth probably hoping for a caution to get another chance on a restart. But I don't know, maybe he's trying to save his tires here for the last 5 laps and get that good run. As you see, the 44 also kind of drifted through turns 1 and 2. So they look very even right now. It's kind of tough to say which advantage they have, but there's 3 lap cars also right up here in front of these guys in the in Malillo, Isaac Johnson, and Marcus. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he can, like I said earlier, try to use one of those guys as a pick, try to get around the outside of Mercurio and get that run he needs to get around him.
Got some great battles going on here through the field. Inside and just outside of the top 10, Will Klein taking the 3rd position away from Matthew Zwack. Saw Dalton Cowden get around both Sean Butler and Kevin McAdams moments ago. Butler now going to try and cross him back over for 8th place. And outside the top 10, Nathan Rabideau just picked up the 11th spot on Zach Hudson. We look at these battles closely because while Las Vegas is known for long green flag runs, it's also known for late race drama. So looking for the areas where we might see that late race caution get triggered.
Absolutely, and now with 5 laps to go, Brian Mercurio sees these lap cars in front of him. They were just 2 and 3 wide there in front of him. Looks like Malillo is going to clear both of those guys and kind of get out in his own zip code here. But it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of navigate around these 3 cars and which lanes they both decide to choose to try to obviously not lose any time.
First car would be the 88 of Marcus Siasco, who's going to move up on the top side, get out of the way of the race leader. Siasco 4 laps down, so obviously not battling with these guys. Ooh, Jordan Worth was not able to complete the pass there. Got held up behind the 88 off of turn 4. That'll lose him a little bit of momentum on the front straightaway. Next car I believe that the 44 is going to have to deal with is, I believe that's the 83 car. Yes, it is. That would be the... Or no, I'm sorry, the 33. That is Isaac Johnson. Oh, and he's going to get in the wall. Yikes, right around the 2nd place car. Brian Mercurio's having some luck with the lap traffic. Jordan Worth, not so much.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate there for Jordan. I have to try to swerve low and avoid that. But obviously, Isaac just trying to get out of the way and be super courteous to those guys and got a little tight up off turn 2. But fortunately for Brian Mercurio, like you said, he's not really lost anything here with these lap cars. And now Justin Malillo is in front of him here with 3 laps to go, excuse me. It's going to be pretty difficult for Jordan to get there unless something crazy happens here. He's just kind of falling back to about half a second deficit, but he's still trying to maintain here and hopes he gets lucky with the 53 machine.
Right now, you've got the entire top 3 comprised of drivers that are either not getting Grand National Series points or, in the case of Jordan Worth, who is a Grand National Series driver, is not in the playoffs. So the scenario of a driver winning their way into the finale at Atlanta is null and void at this point in time. Puts even more emphasis on drivers that are battling for the championship, getting max points here tonight to be one of the top 2 in the point standings heading into next week at iRacing Superspeedway.
Yeah, Brian Mercurio now gets around the outside of Justin Malillo, gave him that top side, super courteous there of Justin, and as he comes around to the white flag, I think it's pretty much got to unlock as long as obviously it doesn't make a huge mistake. Jordan has closed the gap in a little bit as he gets around the outside of the 53 as well here, coming off turn 4, but unfortunately being about 4 car lengths back is just not going to be quite enough, but we'll see what happens here in the last lap.
Brian Mercurio going to take the white flag. You got to go all the way back to the early portion of July where he took his last victory, a 3-time winner on the season, but a bit of a winless streak here in the number of starts he'd made in the Grand National Series as 2.5 car lengths down the back straightaway. Not close enough for Jordan Worth to be able to make a charge here into 3 and 4. Just got to hit his marks, and Brian Mercurio, the 44, going to pick up win number 4 as he's going to take the kick in the tires 100 at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway to start the playoffs.
Matthew Zwak here coming across the line, barely going to hold off Tyler Garrett. He was on a lot fresher tires there, and he's going to hold into that top 5 spot as well. So a huge advantage there for Matthew Zwak as somebody else comes across the line. Pretty single file, and good win there by Brian Mercurio. Absolutely did a great job holding off of Jordan Worth and saving those tires during that run.
Matthew Zwak going to be the highest finishing of the playoff contenders. Came into this race in a 3-way tie for 7th with Jake Poulin and Brent Punkari. So obviously going to get some very valuable points here, maybe in a very good point situation when we end up getting to iRacing Super Speedway next week. You see Will Klein trying to get up there, give a congratulatory bump, looks like, to Brian Mercurio, who's now going to get to burn it down here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in front of these Las Vegas fans, and get to celebrate putting the 44 in victory lane for the first time this season, as his 3 previous victories was driving the 62.
Nice little burnout here down there front straightaway. Nice and straight, just lock the brake up and burn your tires off, and definitely not dominating performance at all, but very good execution there at the end to make sure he could save his tires, work the lap traffic, and hold off the 92 machine, and obviously very deserving win for him.
Yeah, Brian Mercurio playing the pit strategy to perfection, was around the 4th position, I believe, when everything cycled around, but had the fresher tires and the long run speed to work his way up to the front, and then nobody was able to challenge him from there on out, as he is going to be heading to victory lane for the 4th time this season in the Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Let's take a look at the finishing results, and you did actually have a couple of your playoff contenders pop up in there at the last moment. Nate Stewart dropped back to 6th, but Sean Butler worked his way back up into 7th. Evan Rice right there in 8th place as well, so some pretty good points days for some of these playoff contenders. Got Kevin McAdams, who's going to finish in the 9th spot, making, I believe it's at least one of his few limited starts this season. Might have been his first start on the year in that 0-2. Talton Cowden going to hang on to the 10th spot. Tyler Gary, the pole sitter, was able to bounce back for a 5th place position. Outside the top 10, Nathan Rabideau still with some decent points. Led a couple of laps there during the green flag pit cycle. He'll get 11th. Zach Hudson in 12th. Osen Walsh, Jonathan Oates, and Brent Punkari going to complete the top 15. So about 7 drivers finishing up inside the top 15 of your playoff contenders. Now you've got Tristan Hagestein, another playoff driver, finishing in 16th. Jameson, Ray, Kalonix, and Davis going to complete the top 20. Then you start getting down here outside the top 20 to the drivers that are going to have to maybe use this as a mulligan and focus on the upcoming races at iRacing Super Speedway in the Roval. You've got Gary Waterworth back in 22nd. Jake Poole, and the pit strategy did not work out for him. He finishes off the lead lap in 25th. Palesso all the way back in the 27th position. But again, the good news is that they still got a shot in the upcoming races to be the highest finishers of the Grand National Series playoff drivers. The bad news is these bad performances here today puts them in a hole in terms of trying to be one of those top 2 in the point standings when we get to the season finale.
Yeah, absolutely. They're probably going to be focusing on, obviously, getting that win over those other playoff drivers. And I place the guy racing the Super Speedway next week. Obviously, anybody can win in any kind of situation. So it's obviously going to be super wild, and they're going to be really focused on those other guys who are around them and try to, bring themselves up out of this hole and probably be pretty aggressive in a track like that.
Yeah, the last 3 Super Speedway races that we've run here on the schedule, the 2 at Daytona and the 1 at Talladega, have all been won by Grand National Series drivers. So definitely a big opportunity for a playoff contender to capitalize and get that automatic ticket into the finale next week. Let's see if we can talk with some of our podium finishers here tonight. Let's talk with a guy who picked up 27 spots during the course of this race from a 30th position starting point to finish in the podium in 3rd place. Let's talk with Will Klein. Hey, Will, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Sure do.
Well, man, I mean, that car was flying there in the closing stages of this race, up into the top 10, then up into the top 5. It definitely had some great long-run speed, but how many laps do you think you needed to maybe be able to get up there and mix it up with the 44.92, maybe put this machine in victory lane?
I don't know if I needed laps. I needed track position. on that restart. I kind of got shuffled, or on that first restart, I got shuffled a little too far back because I was running about the same times as Brian. But yeah, no, we definitely we kept the right rear on it. Some guys didn't, so that's how we motored on up through the pack.
Yeah, obviously, we ended up also seeing that this race went into the long green flag run early on, had a caution kind of split it up, but then green flag from that one restart to the finish of this race. How difficult was it to try and plan out pit strategy? Because we saw a number of drivers do the short pit. We saw the 222 stretch it just about as far as he possibly could with about 30 laps to go. Did you have a number in your head? Was it kind of just play it according to the traffic around you?
Yeah, you play it to how the leaders do it. Either you don't want to pit too early and get too off sequence because it doesn't really help you on iRacing right now, at least with the current, you know, the current racing we have. It doesn't help to short pit by a lot because you're out there on an island getting passed by everybody. So you got to pit around the people you're running with.
Talk about pit road because obviously that played a big part into today's race with that green flag pit stop. We saw drivers having a little bit of struggling in two different places. One was woeing the car down, getting to the commitment line. Saw a lot of rear tire lockup. We also saw a lot of drivers lock up the front tires trying to get into their pit stall. A lot of drivers overshooting.
Yeah, maybe guys are just missing their points going in a little too hard. I don't know. I took it easy, so I didn't really have any issues, and played out in the end.
Well, great run for you tonight, Will. Congratulations on a third place finish, working your way up through the field as we documented, picking up 27 spots here from the start of this race to the conclusion. So definitely had to pass a lot of race cars and did it really clean as well. That car looked pretty pristine crossing the start finish line, taking the checkered flag. We're now going to turn the mic over to you, let you thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Thanks to Nexus for putting the cars together. Thank them every week that I do run. Thanks to the FTF admins for putting on the league, for you guys broadcasting, and for everybody watching.
That's Will Klein. He brings it home P3 here today at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Congratulations on a great run there, Will.
All right, thank you.
We get our second place finisher here tonight, Jordan Worth.
Hello.
Hey, Jordan, it's Lucas and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hello.
And that car was fast. We thought maybe you'd be able to get to the back bumper of the 44. They're going to 3 and 4. Certainly looks like you drove it in deep. But man, I mean, how much confidence does this give you having that kind of speed in that 92 car, almost picking up the victory here tonight?
Well, I was going to wreck him. That was my plan. If I could have gotten to his bumper there in the last corner, I was just going to put him in the wall. But no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't going to do that. But I had a lot of fun with that race. That was a good time. We had to save the tires and drive the car. And I had a good time with that. Was it fun to watch?
Definitely. Absolutely was a tremendous race to watch. Saw that long green flag run, didn't know how the strategy was going to work out. One thing I got to ask you here, too, obviously the disappointment of not making the playoffs, but highest finisher of the Grand National Series drivers here tonight. And we also were told that with the playoff format, the drivers that do not advance into the championship battle at Atlanta, they resort back to the points that they would have had they not been in the playoffs at all. So how much motivation does that give you to keep this consistency up? And maybe by time we take the checkered flag at Atlanta, find yourself up there inside the top 8 in the point standings.
Oh, I'm going all the way. Yeah, I'm going to get second in points if that's mathematically possible. I don't think it is. I don't know what mathematically is possible, but whatever it is, I'm going all the way. Someone wants to crunch the numbers on that. I'm going all the way in the numbers.
Well, the one thing I know, you don't want me trying to crunch the numbers in my head because I have a very poor track record when
That's
I finally
okay.
see what the official results are. But man, I mean, congratulations, a great run here tonight. Obviously, very strong race car up there in the conversation at the very end. Great performance for that 92 machine here tonight. Let's turn the mic over to you now for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Thanks. It's Saturday night. It's Sábado Gigante. And then tomorrow's Sunday. It's a small Sunday. You got to come down from the Saturday. And that's all I've got to say. But I appreciate you, Seth. Thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely. That's Jordan Worth, who finished in second place here tonight in the Kicking the Tires 100 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Congrats once again. A great run there, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks.
And let's now go down to victory lane. Fourth time this season for Brian Mercurio, but first time piloting the number 44. Hey, Brian, Lucas, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yo.
And you took me back to my Air 2003 days racing with you in that 44 machine. I recall you driving that number quite a bit. But man, doesn't matter what number's on that Barr Visual Supra, you are fast wherever you go. 4th win on the season, but kind of had to work for it there in the closing stages. 4th place when everything cycled around after the pit stops. Had to pass the 92 to be able to get the race lead, and had him pretty much dogging you there in those final couple of laps.
Yeah, I knew I had a number for when I wanted to pit. Once I saw other guys in the top 10, top 5 pit, I decided to just go with them. I figured Jordan would probably try to play the long game since he was the leader. Really didn't have much to lose. And he had the tire advantage there in the second run, so I figured I might as well try to short pit and push a little bit coming out of the pits, try to hold the gap as much as I could. I felt like I did a pretty good job. Definitely got lucky with lap traffic. May have played a little bit in my favor, not so much in Jordan's, but I think it kind of evened out towards the end. He definitely had something over me. It's super hard to pass here, so glad I was just able to hold on to it.
There was a point around the midway portion of this race where we saw the 92, the 4, and yourself all battling for the race lead, and you were kind of boxed in behind them with them racing side by side. We never really saw the third line come into play tonight. Was that just based off of the track conditions that the third line was unusable, or was there just maybe a kind of apprehension to go up there since not much rubber had been laid up there?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I know there's some people here who can make the third line work, whether it's day, nighttime, cold track, hot track. I just haven't been comfortable with it here yet. So I knew I wouldn't probably go and try to explore up there or anything. And especially with everybody being side by side like that, racing for the lead. If everybody's single file, you can kind of at least, if you get a run off the corner, you can kind of at least choose where you want to go. If you want to try to dip low or go high, you get the run off the corner. If you want to go low or try to pin it to the guys outside, but when they're side by side, the run kind of dies. Like unless you want to try to push it 3, there's really no point. So trying to make that third line really, really tough. And that was just another example of it just being really hard to pass. Like I felt like I had better tires there, and I caught them real quick. It's just I got stuck around them for I think it was about 5 or 6 laps, and it's just it's hard to find anywhere to go really. Just kind of had to wait your time, see if everything could just cycle through. That's just kind of how it was. Just kind of rode the top until everybody who was on the bottom just kind of cycled back. And then once it got a little more single file, me and Jordan kind of broke away, and it was just the rest of the race from there.
It's amazing that we're talking to you in victory lane for the first time since back in July. You talk about it being difficult to pass, and we talked moments ago with Will Klein. He picked up 27 spots since his starting spot in the green flag in 30th. You also picked up 27 spots, started all the way back deep in the field in the 28th position. So how difficult is it to kind of tell yourself, be patient when you've got nearly the entire field up there in your windshield?
It could be a little difficult. It's one of those things where you start in the back and you're like, man, I just want to pass everybody in the first 2 laps, but it just doesn't work like that. And you just got to bide your time, be patient with your tires, and once you get 10, 15 laps into a run, especially with a tighter setup like with what we ran here tonight, you could just be really patient and see when guys just start getting tight. Know how hard and how easy you have to go. Just know the limit of how hard you could push. So start picking people off one by one. Just start slowly chipping away through the field. Got up to about 16th, I think it was, for the first caution. And then I was 13th on that restart and just kind of did the same thing again. So always fun.
Well, man, 4th win of the season for you here in the Grand National Series. Congratulations on that. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
I just want to give a shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast, FTF, all the admins who keep this show running every week. Really appreciate it. Barr Visuals, Dalen Barr, for not only sponsoring the series, being a personal sponsor of mine. Always love to represent his logos on my race cars. Lowline Racing, DM Software Development, AI Manager, and that's about it.
That's Brian Mercurio. He wins here tonight at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the Kicking the Tires 100. Congratulations, Brian, on a tremendous win there. Exciting finish here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway as well. Go enjoy that victory.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
And that's going to bring our coverage here this evening at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway to a close. But my goodness, Lucas, long green flag racing here tonight for sure, and that just played more and more emphasis on the preservation of the Goodyears. We saw a lot of drivers just prior to those green flag pit stops really falling through the field, and even when we were coming around the final 5 laps, we saw drivers starting to fall through the field and drivers start to make some tremendous gains. So definitely a strategy call for these drivers here tonight, not only with when they had to come to pit road, but what they did on the track as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Las Vegas always kind of seems to go that way. It's either a long green flag run, or you get a lot of cautions towards the end of the race, and it kind of becomes green checker territory. But super clean race here tonight, especially for a 35-car field. I was really impressed with all of these guys, and only having one caution there early in the race, so it was really entertaining to kind of see the different strategies of comers and goers, and who was trying to conserve their stuff at the start of the runs. And obviously, Brian Mercurio, Jordan Worth, all of those guys were really, really smart and kind of guessing which way it was going to fall, and it obviously paid off huge for him.
Obviously, none of the playoff drivers locking themselves into the championship battle at Atlanta at this point in time, but we talk about strategy here tonight. How in the world, if you're a playoff contender, do you strategize heading into next week when we head to the Super Speedway, the iRacing Super Speedway?
Yeah, I'm not sure you can strategize anything for that, honestly. It's kind of just take what you got. Even throughout the race, it's kind of the same way. And, like I said, those guys who are in the back of tonight, kind of down the running order, they're going to be really aggressive next week. Maybe try to run up front more instead of ride in the back for a race like that. And it's going to be really entertaining to see if they can kind of work themselves up towards the front and get in that kind of position, or if the pressure might get to them.
Absolutely. Gonna be a fun one there. A bit of a wild card race right in the middle of the playoffs. Gonna be interesting to see if indeed a Grand National Series driver will lock themselves up a spot in the championship picture or not. Could we have a sleeper winner possibly go to victory lane in that one? We'll have to wait and see. That will be taking place next Saturday night at the iRacing Super Speedway, with the green flag scheduled to fly at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But here tonight, it's Brian Mercurio, your winner at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the Kicking the Tires 100. Lucas, appreciate you joining the booth. It's been a great one here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited to make my debut here commentating for Flatout Racing Network, and a super fun race here in FTF, and obviously a super big pleasure to work with you as well.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody that tuned in here tonight as well. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage, and we will see you once again next Saturday night at the iRacing Super Speedway as the playoffs continue here in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. For Lucas Cram, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next week as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's